A dash of mystery, a sparkle of magic, and all things cozy. Join your host, Elle Hartford, for Cozy Alchemy, a proud member of the Authors on the Air network. Hello and welcome to Cozy Alchemy, the podcast all about cozy, timeless books. I'm Elle, and my guest today is Seth Panitch, author of Antique, coming out next month. We are going to talk all about that in just a minute, but first, Seth is going to lead us in a game of two truths and a lie.
First, I'm very happy to be cozy. It's been a crazy day here at the university, so I'm just happy to be cozy with you. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
So two truths and a lie.
Mm-hmm.
All right, number one, I did not write the first page of any novel until I was in my 50s.
Ooh, okay.
Number two, when I was a wee lad, I worked summers at a local antique store.
Nice.
Number three, I was the first U.S. theater director to officially direct a play in Havana with the Ministry of Culture since 1959.
Ooh,
So what do
that's
you
a
think?
good one to end on. This is a good range. Okay. And I know I've said it before on the podcast, we'll have authors who come on and talk about when they started writing, like it'll be one of their truth or lies, and I always get it wrong. Whichever way it happens to go. But okay, I really like that last one's fascinating, so I'm hoping that is true. I am going to guess. You know what? I'm going to guess that the first one is the lie.
Okay. The second one's the lie.
Ah!
I've never worked in an antique mall. I've never played a character that worked at an antique mall. And I did not start writing novels at all until I was 54 years old.
Wow. Okay. Very cool. And of course, we're going to get to antiquing and where then you were getting your inspiration, if not for your professional experience. But okay, this is your first book, Antique. So it took you a while then to come around to novel writing, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's fascinating. Okay. But I know that we'll get to that later as well. So let's start off. Just if you would please give us kind of an overview of your novel.
Absolutely. So Antique follows Grace Schaefer, who has had a fall from grace, if I can double up on grace. She sort of has everything. You know, she's one of the lead appraisers on Antiques Roadshow, and she's in love with her husband. She's known him since college, and he's very dynamic. In fact, he's the host of Antiques Roadshow. And she's following the footsteps of her father, who's this titan in art history. He's the head of art history at Columbia. And he's written all these books, all these tomes over the years. And in a very short period of time, she loses her father. He passes before she has this chance to really prove herself to him. Her husband has an affair with his assistant on Antiques Roadshow, and she has to leave Antiques Roadshow, and she loses her entire career. And so she kind of crawls into a cocoon and tries to crawl out of it at one of these very small, they have these sort of minor league, sort of off Broadway, Antique Roadshow type things. And she's on one of those in the middle of nowhere. And she looks at the people that bring their treasures in a very different way. She has a different perspective on it now that she's been down so low. And she feels sorry for them. And so what she starts doing is slightly overvaluing things, because it doesn't make sense to her that things should be such a low value when these people care about it so much.
No.
And they're really not supposed to do it. She could get fired for doing that. And in fact, there's this one piece, this very old necklace. It's what they call, it's like a constellation on a rock. It's this beautiful thing. It's the technical term is celestial globe. And it's this, but it's old and it's tarnished and it's destroyed. And she feels so sorry for this mother and daughter who need money that not only does she overvalue it by a lot, a couple grand, she buys it from them because she feels so bad for them. But what she finds is as she continues to overvalue things and people take them to market, and take them to, different places to get value on, it's selling for exactly what she says it's going to sell. And what she realizes is that there's some power in this necklace that somehow she's awoken that allows her to set the value on things, not by what the market says, but the emotional worth of the people behind it, of what it's meant to that family over the years and what it means to the people. They have grandmother's brooch or whatever they have. And so it sends her back into the firmament because she's a hot commodity, and it gets her all the way back on Antiques Roadshow, and she's sort of skyrocketing from it. And of course, there are pitfalls as well, because you have to be careful for what you wish for. And in the end, she has to bet this incredible piece of jewelry and her newfound confidence and her insight into people and things on one last object. And it may or may not be what she's been looking for her entire life. Every art historian is looking for what they call their holy grail. It's that one piece, right, that by some master that's been lost for time. And there's a painting that she finds, and she thinks this is it. But ultimately, she has to bet everything on it in front of the entire art world at Sotheby's, on television, and with the whole world watching. And what she ultimately has to do is not appraise the painting. She has to do the most terrifying appraisal, which is of herself. And that's the story. So, it's about value and how we value things, how we misvalue things. It's about how we look at age, because she's beginning to age and she's looking at her parents as well, and how we as a society value youth over age because it's pretty, because it's the shiny new object. And we discard these incredible lives and this experience and these stories that we could hear from these people. So that's really what the piece is about.
I love that. And I think that's probably, no shade to other authors, but I think that might be the best kind of synopsis of a story that we've had.
Oh, good. Thank
That
you.
was
I'm glad.
very well delivered. Yeah. We should expect no less, right? Okay. And you touched on some really exciting things in there that I'm really looking forward to diving into, especially around value. But first, it does have to be asked, how much Antiques Roadshow did you watch while writing
Watched
this?
a little more than a little. Yeah, so Antiques Roadshow is a show that I've always loved. I can't even tell you when I started getting addicted to it. But I will tell you that I've always been calmed and become very blissful when I watch somebody talk about something when they know their shit. Right? And so it could be anybody. It could be someone talking about the cosmos, or somebody talking about history, or somebody that knows something intricate that I don't know, that really knows what they're talking about. I just find that fascinating. And to watch the experts on Antiques Roadshow look at something and give you a book of information on it, and all the nooks and crannies, and if it only had this, it'd be worth that, and if it was worth this. I find that fascinating. As I've gotten older, though, Elle, what interests me even more is the responses. There are the responses of the people who are bringing their objects to the show. And so that's what I've been looking at a lot, and that's really what inspired me, is that human, and we can talk about that, in a little bit when we're talking about magic. But watching people see value in themselves through those objects, to me, was a very human story, and it connected very much for me. I've also loved fantasy since I was a kid, and I love magic stories. I was a big fan of the Arthurian legends, and so that sense that there's something real, tangible, that's right there, right in front of us, that could have that possibility, to me has always been fascinating. But yeah, I got the original idea on the elliptical during COVID.
Okay.
When we're all locked up, and I was teaching on Zoom and putting my students into a coma. And I was on elliptical, and I saw an episode, Elle, where a guy, older gentleman, he brought this old ratty rug, and he'd had it for a while, and it was just sitting over a chair in his house. And he brought it in thinking it's worth, $100, $500. I just want to know, because I think his grandmother gave it to him. And the appraiser said, well, that's actually a Navajo Ute blanket, and it's worth, I think, $250,000. And
Oh my goodness.
he just, a shower of tears, because
Oh.
it was, his grandmother was worth that much to the world to him in that moment. And that's when I felt sad that we needed someone to tell us that, but so thankful that we have communities and art forms that do that for people. And that's sort of where it came from.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. Yeah. And I really appreciate that insight. Yeah. That it is, it is sad the way we can get tied up in exterior worth that
Yeah.
way. Um, I do have to put a pin in that for just a second and
Yeah.
go back because you were talking about Arthurian legends and everything. Does that, and connecting with objects, does that mean that the sword in the stone is then your holy grail sort of
There
object when
is,
you
I,
would read?
there is a sword in the stone, but it's not the
Ah,
Grail. It's not the Grail. It's a different object, but I do have that in there. I
nice,
do have that in
nice.
there. And I do have a round table of sorts, which are
Ooh.
the experts that she's with, that rise with her. So there is, and they are an interesting, funny, and kooky crew. They don't wear armor, but their armor is their intellect, right, and all of their knowledge.
Oh,
So in that respect, they have armor. But it's a rowdy
absolutely.
group. So imagine the Knights of the Round Table with a lot of mead, and they've eaten too much lamb and mutton.
It's so much fun the way, like influences from decades ago or from childhood can it still show up in our work. I love that.
I
I
think
love
they're
that so
always there,
much.
don't you? I mean, that
Yeah.
sort of that elemental stuff that when we were forming how we look at the universe and how we look at good and evil and how we look at our
Hmm.
lives and our parents and everything that happens to us, I think that there are little seeds that are set very early on and the great thing about art is getting to look at it with older eyes. You're still seeing the same thing, but it's from a totally
Ah.
different perspective with a different lens. And so I think different colors come out when we look at those things from youth that I just don't think we had the wherewithal to understand when we were that age.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and your perspective changes, right? But for me, what that makes me think of is the whole idea of originality, right? And how being, especially in an artistic world, a lot of people will get hung up on that. Like I gotta write the book that has never ever been written before and is
Yeah,
totally new,
yeah,
but it's in a way more beautiful to think of these influences, yeah, that we absorbed and we learned from and that shaped us, and like we are now shaping that into something fresh. That sort of interweaving, I think,
yeah.
is so much more lovely.
Yeah, and obviously we're not going to write anything new. They've been doing this since cave paintings. So we're talking right 10, 20,000 years. So it's 20,000 years of people fiddling out, right? Why the chicken crossed the road. So they've been doing this for so long that but what's new is the person telling the story because they're telling it
Mm,
through their experience, right? And so
hmm.
that to me that's what's original is when someone really hazards themselves in the writing or whatever they're doing. That's the only thing that's going to be new about it.
Ah, I like that. Okay, and that bleeds a little bit into the next question that I really wanted to ask you about this idea of value
Mhm.
and worth. And was that something that you knew from the beginning that you wanted to write about, or did it kind of develop?
Yeah, that's something I knew I wanted to write about. It's something that I think about a lot. I
Mm,
think about it in a very different way now. Obviously, I'm in my 50s, so when you get older, you start looking at your own value and real value, not what are you going to get for immediate pleasure, but what
mm,
nourishes your life, and is what how do you do that with a partner? How does that nourish you, and how does my work nourish me? But I've also had an advantage, which is that I'm seeing, for the last 21 years, I've been teaching at the university level. I have a graduate program and undergraduate program. So I'm getting to see
hmm.
different ages of students get bombarded by social media and seeing how that determines their worth. And they look to, who gives them a thumb
Ah,
up and who tells them that they suck. And the problem is, there's so many underwear jockeys out there. That's what I call them, who are sitting up there at 3 o'clock in the morning, who've never done a thing in their life, and they're going to tell you they hate your cat. Why do you do that? And
yeah.
so our youth are so programmed by that immediate negative response because it's so easy to say something negative about something. What's
Mm,
tough is to acknowledge what's better about somebody, what's brilliant about somebody, and then steal it. I mean, in art, you're supposed to steal it, right? But I think we have a really tough time doing that because we think that sometimes lessens us. So seeing that in students and fighting to help them see the value in their own voice without worrying about those outside voices is something that I've been working on for a long time, and so it does concern me. And so and I think personal value is something I deal with in a lot of what I write. And I think this was a nice opportunity for me to just really seat myself into, because of course the whole piece is value. The market says it's going to sell for this, and people might go to Sotheby's and bid higher, but for the most part, it's within the range of what they assume this will sell for. And that's an artificial thing when it comes to our humanity. We cannot be categorized like that. And maybe the pieces that we own and the memorabilia of our lives, they can't carry a number sign, a dollar sign in the same way.
Absolutely.
We can't let somebody else tell us, well, that picture you have of you and your dog that you lost when you were 8, that's not worth anything. Well, that's a lie. It's worth a tremendous amount. So yeah, it is something that concerns me, and the more that we proliferate with these sort of easy shortcuttings of things, of emojis instead of communication, we're stealing what's beautiful about us, that value of us, that real worth in us. And so I'm hoping that people can read this and rediscover their own worth through it, and maybe in a different way.
Absolutely. I love that. And because it touches in a very fresh and unique way on something that we talk about often on this podcast, where, a lot of cozy books, cozy fantasy, cozy mystery, what have you. Often at least the author's intention is to kind of hold that space for people to not only take a break, but actually feel like they have more worth than they thought they did. You know what I mean? To be accepting and to be encouraging. And that, weaves its way throughout the genre in so many different ways. I also, longtime podcast listeners will know I just recently moved. So I hear very deeply the idea that not all of your things have just a market value.
Right.
I tried so hard to pare down books. For example, you can see I've got one of many bookcases behind me. I tried so hard to pare it down, but just doesn't work that way, right? Yeah. It's funny that we expect the world to be able to be quantified when, we know that can't be.
It can't be. It's a moving number, Yeah.
I love that. It's so cool. But now, because we have started talking about genre and coziness and fantasy, I love sort of the everydayness sort of this magic then in your story, right? Because not so much because of the magic itself, but because it comes from this hope that we all have, like, oh, maybe I have something in the attic I can take to Antiques Roadshow and it'll, who knows, it might be worth something. I love taking that, like pulling magic into that and making it accessible in sort of like a yes, maybe sort of way. How do you approach magic in your everyday life? Like, how do you
Well, I guess that question has two parts, because you're talking about old things in the attic and bringing them down. We put them in the attic because we think they're not worth anything anymore, which is sad. And we were talking earlier about age. I think we've done that with our elderly. We sort of put them in the attic. But one thing I deal with in the book is that, the sunset is at its most beautiful when it's setting. Right? That split second before it goes. And that is one thing I've noticed as I get older, is that even though I want to go run a marathon, my body's like, 5 miles is enough. But, as our body is breaking down, our hearts and our minds are at their strongest. And it's a challenge. Like, what are you going to do with this experience? Are you just going to roll into bed and that's going to be the rest of your life? Or are you going to share that? Are you going to act on that? And so to me, that's magic. I think that the older we get, the more non-linear, non-realistic things are inside of us. For some people, it's religion. For some people, it's spirituality. For some people, it's just the way they respond to nature or a baby or the best chocolate ice cream in the world, right? I mean, we're able to be sensitive to these things later in life. And so the book, so that is something I'm trying to be more sensitive to in my life, and that's something I'm having the characters go through as well. But in terms of like regular everyday magic, I think it's all in perspective, isn't it? Right? So you could say that the person that I'm dating, think about the first time you held the hand of either the partner you have now or someone you dated. Look, it's just, this is what it is, right? It's just skin on skin, right? It's just, and it's dry skin if it's me, right? And my hand's too cold. So technically, it's just friction. But there's something between the atoms of that physical gesture that is magic, that makes your heart race, that makes your dreams start going, I'm going to marry him, whatever that is. But I think that, the touch of that, the pet of a dog, the sound of a song that you've never heard before, or a song that you haven't heard since you were in high school, like your favorite song. I think there's something that exists between the sound wave or the physical touch, or even what we see when our eyes reflect the light off somebody's face. And I do think that that's magic. I would call it that because it has the power to transform us from sad to happy, from bored to horny, from, whatever it's going to transition to us. I mean, and that is the definition of magic. I think that comedy does that so well for us, and music does that so well, and art that moves us, and going to a museum. When you walk into a museum, which I know you work in, there's an environment that is not duplicated anywhere else. There's an air in there, which is a mixture, of course, of the oils and the pastels and the people and the furniture and everything else. But I think there's something that exists between that, and there's history, which is magic. You're being transported back, and in some artists, you can see the actual paint strokes. So aren't they magically illuminated for you in that moment, right? They're conjured in that moment. So I do believe that I don't have a magic wand, and I don't know if I believe in that, but I do believe that there is a cosmic magic underneath, in between, over and around everything that we do.
Absolutely. Obviously, I am very much on board. I'm very much in this cozy, magical world space. Is very much where I choose to spend my time. So in some ways, it's preaching to the choir. But I really like how that exploration of magic really echoes, what we're talking about with worth as well. And market value versus what does it actually mean? Yeah, that's lovely. Now, Antique is your first novel, as we mentioned, but you have, you have films, you have plays, you have teaching, and as well as an acting career. How was it transitioning to novel writing? Did anything surprise you?
It's a strange, circuitous journey. And actually, I consider this my first novel, but it's not the first time I wrote 500 something pages. So I'll talk about that. So for me, when I was young, my dream was to be a novelist. Acting saved my life as a young kid because I had a tough time sitting in a chair and focusing in school. And a friend of mine dragged me into an audition for a play with Charlotte's Web, and I was cast as Templeton the Rat, the Fat Rat, and they didn't really need a big pillow for me at the time. And that really gave me something that I was good at, that sort of separated me from the group, and it really gave me an identity. So I loved that. But for me, my first love was always reading, and my parents started me reading very early in life. I was reading things all the time when I was young. And I think reading is actually, even before acting, was the thing I did first that I felt comfortable doing. And acting for me, I never thought I'd make a career in theater. Of course I have, but I never thought I would do that. When I got into college, I thought, well, I'm going to do theater and acting because it's going to help my writing, because I do want to be a novelist someday. I'd done a few short stories in high school, could do that. The problem is the doors kept opening, and they were beautiful doors. They were golden doors with lots of shiny tinsel all over them. And I kept running through those. And then I went to this great graduate program in classical acting, and then I did a bunch of Shakespeare festivals. And I went to LA, and then I wrote a play, and I went to New York. And then at one point I said, I want to teach. And so I thought I'd do it for a year. And then I'm 21 years later, right here, I'm doing it. And because I can teach and do at the same time. That's what I've loved about teaching is to have the security that you can not get a play done for 6 months, but you're still going to get dinner, and you can do it when you want. But I think it was during COVID, I said to myself, not comparing myself to him, but Shakespeare left these plagues when they were shut down the theaters, and he came back with his, greatest tragedies, right? I mean, after the second time they were shut down, he comes back with Lear and Macbeth and Othello and these. I'm like, what am I coming back with? And then I remembered I went into this in the first place to write novels. What the hell happened? I mean, what happened? And it's a good lesson that just because you're good at something and a door opens doesn't mean you should necessarily go through it. And I just did. And so I said, is it too late? I haven't written even a short story since I was 17 years old, and I was cracking 50. So I sat down and I adapted one of my screenplays. It's a film that's coming out in April. It's an independent film, but it's coming out in April. And I just said, well, I know this story so well. I'm just going to see if I can write a novel. And it wasn't really a novel, but it was 500 pages. And I used that to teach me how to write a novel and to fail. That's good. Right? Although I know how to rework it so it can be a novel one day. And so I did that first. And then I think I sent it to 106 agents, and 106 turned me down. But they were beautiful. They're like, I love your writing. Send me your next thing. Nobody said this stinks. And so they were very kind to me. I mean, they were kinder probably than I deserved on that piece. And then I was able to get my agent, Michael Signorelli, off of this piece. And in writing this, I'd learned so much from that first one of how I wanted to structure it. And I have these intense documents that I use because as a director, I always structured, and as a playwright, I always structured. So the writing of it, Elle, this is what surprised me, is actual writing it was not the transition that I thought it would be. And obviously, I'm still transitioning, right? I mean, I have so much to learn about fiction, but I noticed that I'm doing everything that I've been trained to do. So it's a natural transition. So I'm designing the set, right? I'm painting the scene for the audience. Then I'm directing the action. So I'm showing how that action resolves and how things clash. And I'm trying to make it compelling and exciting to watch in the reader's minds. And when I write, I act every role. So I'll speak the lines out as I write them. And I'll know that they're clunky if I can't act them. And I connect with every single character that I write, even if it's servant number 12, I connect with them. So it wasn't the transition I thought it was going to be. And I will say that the writing of Antique is the most fulfilling, creative experience that I've ever had. It was incredibly moving. And when I got to the final scene, I was like bawling. And I think it was because finishing something, but it was also the moment itself was very emotional for me. So yeah, it was a very strange journey to get to writing, but right, better late than never. So here I am.
Yeah, no, and it's so cool. That's so neat. And we had a voice actor on before who would say the same thing, like that, the having that acting experience and actually like speaking your work aloud obviously helps a lot in the writing process. But yeah, it's neat to hear that perspective from somebody who has a theater background and acting background, because I think a lot of writers, obviously a lot of us do put pieces of ourselves in the characters, and we're giving them words that maybe we want to say or we would say or we wish we could. Like we'll get invested, but we don't have the same language for what we're doing. So it's really neat to hear you talk about that.
Yeah, actors have to hazard themselves, right? They have to, that's the challenge of acting is can I put myself into the role enough that an audience can see humanity in it? And I believe that that's what writers have to do. You have to hazard yourself And that's tough to do. And someone might spot something. I mean, obviously we're made up with, 1% of something really evil and maybe 30% of something that's sort of evil. We all have these different percentages, and it's about pulling a percentage in that, pulling those 1% sometimes and putting that out there. And people might be able to spot it in you. But I mean, if you were going to do anything else, you would have to do the same thing. If you were going to doctor, you'd have to put yourself on the line of somebody's life. And everybody else has to do that. And so I don't think artists get a pass. Right? I mean, someone who's in the military is going to literally put their life on the line all the time. And I think teachers in the inner city, they put their soul on the line with those kids. I think that artists sometimes hear everybody tell them that it's easy to do, right? And so it's just easy. It's just acting. It's just acting. Well, it's not just acting. It's being there. And same thing with writing. You're working with your own demons and angels in every moment when you're writing.
Yeah.
And I hope an audience a reader can tell the difference in that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that goes so well because I had made a special note. You have on your website, you have it sort of a Q&A section, and you talk about the responsibility that writers have to their readers. And as you mentioned, I do come from the museum, education world. We talked a lot about serving the folks who come through the door. So I was really interested in your thoughts on that. I know we just touched on it a little, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, yeah. And again, writing is a very selfish thing in the best of ways. It's one thing I love about writing so much is that in theater, everything's a collaboration. Writing, directing, acting, you're always collaborating. What I love so much about writing, and I love to collaborate, is the actual first draft. There's no collaboration. I have loved my collaboration with my editor. Jacqueline at Grand Central she's spectacular. And that process is its own thing and its own joy. But there's also a great thing for those 3 months of just locking yourself in a room and collaborating with that little 1% that you don't take out and show anybody. So it's an incredibly selfish thing. But what we're aiming for is a service. So many people crack open a book and they hate it and it bores them to tears. But they buy it. And more importantly than their money, they buy it with their time. Everybody today has rough lives. We push ourselves so hard. And if someone's going to put in our hands that they've come to us for, maybe it's just a laugh, maybe it's just an entertainment, and that's great too. Or maybe it's a think or a cry or a smile or whatever they want, they're missing something. And they come to you because they think that you can somehow help them bridge that gap. I think that's an incredible honor. And I think that that's a responsibility. If someone's going to go, there's so many books on the bookshelf, right? Or on the internet. And if they're going to choose yours, you better be serving them. It better not be an egomaniacal exercise because you are dealing with a lot of pain. So it's not therapy. It might be therapeutic to write, but it's not, they didn't pay for you to have your therapy with them. They paid to have some sort of transformation from their life. They want their life to be left at the door while they sit in their comfy chair, their cozy chair, and they read your book. And so I take it very seriously.
Yes. Amen. I mean, obviously, I feel very strongly about writing and about cozy genres in particular. And yeah, it's, even as writers, right, we will have a habit of being dismissive of our work. But there is so much good that can be done and that, perhaps should be, right? You have the opportunity. Yeah.
And the other thing to think about our work as writers is no book is perfect. Right? Not even Le Morte to Arthur, right? No book is perfect. If someone reads your book and takes one good thing out of it, well, you've done your service. So every page does not have to be Moby Dick, right? But if you have the white whale breaches in one of them, you got an exciting thing. It's something, you got somebody's heart rate up or something like that. There's the old saying that if you make one person laugh, you save the world for that moment. And it's the same thing if you make them think or just go to a different place for themselves.
Absolutely. All right. What is next for you? Have you got the novel writing bug? Are you going to write a bunch
Oh
more?
God, yes. Yeah, this is so, this is going to be my next chapter.
Nice.
I'm going to let go of the training wheels of academia, which is a very
Ah,
safe. It's been a very successful place for me over the years, and I had a great mentor here, and he said to me, "You got to say to yourself, is this new or is it better?" Like we were talking about worth.
mm,
Is it just repeating successes you've already done, or is it taking a new challenge? And I want to take that challenge. I obviously there's so much I can still learn in theater, but this is where I'm going. So I have
awesome.
a list of 25 ideas that sit by my computer at home, to make me really anxious, right? And I
Yeah.
have outlines for probably two or three of them, and I've already written my second official novel, and I'm working with my agent right now, and,
Nice.
on that piece, and getting his thoughts on that, and that's called Harmony, and it's about the harmony of music and heartbreak and marriage and divorce and
Ooh,
romance, and it's about the music in our lives, and how it comes from strife, how
very
and so
cool.
that's what that whole piece is about. And so anyone who's fans of classic music, there's a lot of references in there about that, and there's a lot of magic in that as well.
Nice.
That's
Nice.
what I like to work in. And I have my a strong idea for my third one, which I won't even talk about because someone's going to steal it. Yeah,
Right.
and I also have a film
Fair.
coming out. So my second independent film, my first is called Service to Man, which is loosely based on my father's experiences. He was one of the first white students at Meharry Medical College, which is an all-black
Mm.
medical college in Nashville. That's where I was born. And the second one I did is a horror film, and I shot it in 22, but it's taken me all this time to finish it and get it distributed. That's a horror film called The Coming, and that's coming out April 3rd from Terror Films. And I don't know if that's
Nice.
very cozy, but it's scary.
No, but yeah, yeah. Well, and every once in a while you need a break.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need something different. That is so exciting. So cool. Okay. Uh, Final but one question,
Mhm.
penultimate question. What advice would you give to yourself if you could go back a couple years ago, pandemic, or even all the way back,
Yeah.
when you were a kid just starting
There's
out?
two things that I've learned. The first, and I didn't know this when I sat down to write my first novel. I firmly believe that writing is not a talent. I believe that it's
Mm,
a technique. I don't believe, and I don't believe that anyone pops out of the womb a writer. I just do not believe in this. I do not believe anyone pops out of the womb a great stand-up comedian. We pattern ourselves after people, and great writers who have an affinity, who take to it quickly, may have had someone in their life that wrote, or they may have fallen in love with writing at a very early age, and so they pattern themselves after the author's voice that they're reading. So
mm,
it's learned. So learn it. Take the time to learn it. It's going to take a long time, but to be patient with yourself as you learn through, not to rush that first novel, because what you're writing in your first novel is the writer that's going to write the second one. And I don't
mm.
know if I was aware of that. And so when I was writing the first one, I was shortcutting some things. This is the piece that wasn't really a novel. I was all on action, and I wasn't enough on transformation, and I was doing a lot of set pieces, and I think I lost what novels can do, which is really allow the reader to hypnotize themselves, self-hypnosis into this alternate world, to really go to this place. And so I would say be patient with yourself. The second thing I would say is that to be a writer, you're going to have to carve out, right, your fortress of solitude, because no one's going to respect it as your job. Especially if you have a second job. They're going to say, "Oh, you like to do that on the side." You don't write on the side, right? You may have two jobs. You may work in a museum and be a writer, but you don't do it on the side, or you don't do it well. So it has to have your whole soul, your whole heart, your whole energy, your whole brain when you're doing that. And sometimes you just need to carve out that space. And if you're with someone and if they love you, they're going to give you that space. But you're going to have to ask for it. That's not something they're going to understand. And that's not fair to ask of someone who's in love with you to say, I need my weekends to write. I need these 3 hours, not 6 or 8, but I need these 3 hours on Saturday and Sunday. And it's not that they're not going to want that, but they're not going to know that that's important to you. And so I think you're gonna have to have a sharp knife to carve that out for yourself.
Yeah, yeah, very true. That's a good, strong, practical note, I
Yeah,
feel like, to
yeah.
end on. Very good. All right, now to our truly final question.
Okay.
What is one win that you've had in the past week? Anything, big, small, relevant, non-relevant?
Ah, forgot about this. Um, I try to tell at the end of the night, I try to thank the universe for all the good things that happen to me each day. So I have a bunch of them. I mean, it's tough to pull, but the one that comes to mind is from yesterday. I'm a runner, and unfortunately, sometimes I train the way I did when I was on the track team when I was 22, and so I get a lot of injuries. And so
Ah,
yesterday I ran a time for one of my interval sessions. I was running 800s, half miles, and I saw a time, it was 2:45, that I hadn't seen in decades. And that's
wow.
not a great time. But for me, looking at the watch right after I crossed the line and I saw that, I thought that was a great win.
Sure,
And I'm glad it was my
absolutely.
last
Yeah.
one, because if I'd seen that the second to last, I would have tried faster. I would have injured myself for sure.
Right.
Yeah,
So the timing may be also part of that win,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
agreed.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Seth, thank you so much for being here.
Of course, thank you for having me. It was
Yeah,
lovely to talk
absolutely.
to you.
Thanks. Yeah, I will have links to your book, of course, and your website, everything in the show notes.
Great.
Is there any other way you would like for readers to find you? Or any other
They can hit me
you
up
do?
on Facebook. I have an author page on Facebook,
Hmm.
Instagram. I'm on all the social media sites. There are links to them on my website. But I'd love to communicate with people, and especially people that are thinking about getting the book and or have already got it, who have
Mm.
questions about it. This is my first go around, so I'm just interested. And again, as someone coming from theater, I want to talk to my audience, right? That's what theater is. I mean, you're constantly in dialogue. Every
Right.
line you're in dialogue with the audience. So yeah, I'd like to perform with my audience.
Excellent. Okay. Well, listeners, you heard it. That's that's your call to action. Once again, thank you very much. And for listeners, I will talk to you next time. Cozy Alchemy is brought to you by Authors on the Air, and our theme music is by Cyberwave Orchestra. For everything else, blame Elle. You can find her online at lhartford.com.